I'm Lana Rockwell from Tompkins Square Middle School, and I'm here with Laura Ruby, the author of Bone Gap, and I would like to ask her a few questions. What was your inspiration or motive for Bone Gap?
I think my motivation to write any story is to write a really good story about something that fascinates me. And usually my stories start out with like a what if question, right? So what if a girl is haunted by not just one but many ghosts? What if a girl could turn herself invisible, like that? This did not come to me that way. There was not one single question I was obsessed with. It was just a bunch of weird little things. Like my late father-in-law gave me this article about a woman who lost her son at the mall but could not describe him at all, right? So the article was fascinating, but I didn't know what to do with it. And then my dad grew up on a horse farm, and he would tell me all these stories about horses and riding the horses. And I've always been fascinated with bees, so all these things were kind of going through my head. And then I was doing all these school visits in rural Illinois and driving by myself through the creepy cornfields. And it's sort of mesmerizing as you drive through and you start thinking, like, what's in there? You could hide anything in there, right? So all these things sort of kind of came together in my head, and I tried to piece it together. And it was only when I started thinking about the Persephone myth, if you're familiar with that myth. It's about a young woman who's stolen from the fields and taken to the underworld, that I got a shape for it, but took quite a long time.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I have one more question.
Sure.
What's your favorite genre to write?
I have to say that it's hard to answer that question. Anything with magic in it, I think, is my favorite. And sometimes it's a little bit of magic, like magical realism, and sometimes it's, just straight on fantasy.
Right.
But it's my favorite thing to read. Mm-hmm. So you write what you read. Right?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Oscar Wilder from Tompkins Square Middle School, and I'm here in New York City with Neal Shusterman, and I have a question for him. What is the main lesson that you think we should all take away from this story?
The lesson that I think that people should take away from Challenger Deep isn't so much a lesson as an understanding of mental illness, of what it's like to go through the depths of mental illness. And what I hope is that when you read it, you feel as if you're going through it yourself. And when you come out at the other end, you know what it was like to have gone through that. And so you can have compassion and empathy for people who are suffering with mental illness.
And one more question. What was the most difficult part of connecting real life and imaginary characters?
That's a very good question. The most difficult part was making sure that the story was something that my son felt should be out there, because so much of the story is inspired by real life. I wanted to make sure that he was okay with it and was supporting it every step of the way.
Hi, my name is Fatimata, and I have a question for Noelle Stevenson. My question is, why did you choose shape-shifting instead of any other superpowers?
When I was a kid, I always wanted to be a shapeshifter. I always wanted to look like anybody that I wanted to be and turn into any kind of animal that I wanted to be. And I think it's because it feels like something where you're so untouchable if you can do that, or you can change your entire body and no one can ever really get you if you're like that. And that was there's this element of wanting to disappear and run away but still be seen. It's something that I think was very important to me, especially when I was a teenager, when I first made up this character.
What inspired you to make this book?
This was a character that I'd had for a few years. She was very important to me. She represented something to me about myself when I was a teenager. And I wanted to tell a story about superheroes and about fairy tales, which are the things that I am inspired by the most. And it all just fell together.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Lena Weissenberg from Tompkins Square Middle School, and I have a few questions for the writer of Nimona, Noelle Stevenson. So my first question is, if you had to be any of the characters in this book, which one would you be?
Oh wow. I think all of the characters are a little bit of me. I think the obvious one is Nimona though, because she can turn into a dragon, and I want to do that too. Yeah, that would be my short answer, I think.
Did you ever get writer's block when you were writing, and if so, how did you push through it and work to write the rest of the story?
Yeah, absolutely, I did. It helped that when I was putting this online as a webcomic, I had to update 2 times every week. And so I didn't get to just stop. I had to keep going every time. I had to make more pages. And I had to figure it out. And I find that when you're in that situation and people are waiting for you and people are expecting something, you have to make something happen. So it helps to put yourself in a situation where you have to create, and things come out of that. Interesting things come out of that.
One more question. Have you ever written anything else on your webpage or your webcomics site? Anything else?
Any other webcomics?
Yeah, any other webcomic.
Not another webcomic like this one. I've done lots of shorter webcomics. I've done, ones that are like 1 or 2 pages long, or just that are a few panels long. But this is my first full-length, story-length webcomic.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Taro Quirk, and I'm from TSMS, and I'm here with Steve Sheinkin, and I read Most Dangerous, Daniel Ellsberg, and The Secrets of the Vietnam War.
Great.
Okay, and so, why did you choose to write about the Vietnam War?
Well, I don't know about you, but when I was your age, I didn't know that much about it and never really got to it in school. I always found it really interesting and hard to understand. And so I really wanted to learn about it. Sometimes I'll pick a subject just because I want to learn, not so much that I want to teach about it, and that makes it really fun. And then but I also love books that are kind of like thrillers, page turners. And so when I found this particular story, the Daniel Ellsberg story, and it really is almost like a crime story, that really inspired me to tell the story, because the whole Vietnam story is so big and complicated. I could never fit it in. No one could ever fit it in one book, but the Ellsberg story and his incredible journey and the emotional ups and downs and the danger in it, that really felt like one plot, so it would fit well in one book.
Who or what inspired you to write the book?
It's kind of funny, but it was a picture of a filing cabinet. That sounds really boring, right? But it was the filing cabinet. Now you know the story that the government agents broke into to try and steal these secrets that they could use to embarrass Daniel Ellsberg. And I saw a picture of it. It's in the Smithsonian magazine. Well, it was in the magazine, but it's in that museum in D.C. And so I thought, wow, this is that's what made me think it was like a crime thriller, which is the kind of book I love to read. What would it take? Here's the real question that I asked. Why would government agents working directly for the White House, what would it take for them to break in, to do something so outrageously illegal, to break into this cabinet in a doctor's office to steal papers? What could this guy have possibly done to cause that kind of backlash? And so that was kind of my initial, that spark of curiosity that I think carried me into it.
Did you agree with the decision Daniel Ellsberg made by releasing the Pentagon Papers?
That's really the central question. I'm glad you asked. I want to hear your opinion too. But I do. I think it's controversial. I think it's legitimate to take either side of it. I feel like at that point, he was, as long as you're willing, and this was the key, to face the consequences of your actions, and he was. So I think as long as you're willing to go to jail, and would I have been in that situation? I'd like to think I would. It takes a lot of bravery to make that decision. But I think that it was morally the right one, even though it was questionable legally, which is an interesting kind of middle ground, isn't it? What do you think?
I think it is kind of controversial because people may think that it would be hard to tell all the American people, well, we're not doing so great, even though they've lied to them all that time saying, oh, we're doing great,
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Samantha Tan. I'm from Tompkins Square Middle School, and my question for Allie Benjamin is, are any of the characters based on anyone you know?
That's a great question. My younger daughter, who is now 9 years old, loves sea life. She has always loved the ocean. From the time she was a very small kid, and it was actually it was her interest in fish that took me to the aquarium, which is where my interest in jellyfish was first sparked. So she's a little bit in there. My older daughter is very much a child of adventure who would not hesitate to step on a plane to go all the way across the world if she had to. And so she's a little bit in there as well.
My other question is, what part of the book did you enjoy writing the most?
Wow, that's such a good question. I think, honestly, the parts that are about the jellyfish and really trying to think about how that could weave into a real life story of a kid. No.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.